You are up, Commissioner.
Okay, Bannock County Commissioners are back in session. I'd entertain a motion to go into the Board of Equalization.
Mr. Chair, I'd move that we enter into the Board of Equalization.
We have a motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We'd invite the Deputy Clerk to swear anyone that is going to participate in a hearing in this hour to stand, please.
You'll raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that any testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is a hearing of the Board of Equalization under Idaho Law 63-501. The Board of County Commissioners are required to convene as a BOE. We are here to determine the market value under Idaho Code 63-205. All real, personal, and operating property subject to property taxation must be assessed annually at market value for assessment purposes as of 12:01 a.m. of the first day of January in the year in which such property taxes are levied. Furthermore, under Idaho Code 63-502, the function of the Board of Equalization shall be confined strictly to assuring that the market value for assessment purposes of property has been found by the assessor, and to the functions provided for in Chapter 6, Title 63, Idaho Code relating to exemptions from taxation. It is hereby made the duty of the Board of Equalization to enforce and compel a proper classification and assessment of all property required under the provisions of this title to be entered on the property rolls, and in so doing, the Board of Equalization shall examine the rolls and shall raise or cause to be raised or lower or cause to be lowered the assessment of any property which in the judgment of the Board has not been properly assessed. The taxpayer shall have the burden of proof in seeking affirmative relief to establish that the determination of the assessor is erroneous, including any determination of assessed value. A preponderance of the evidence shall suffice to sustain the burden of proof. We are here to discuss the market value of the property, the condition, state, or information that is relevant to this topic. This is fact, not conjecture, or things you may think. We are not here to discuss taxes, past grievances, policy, personal income, or other issues. If you do not stick to the discussion as required, your time will be reclaimed. So what will happen is the property owner will come up and you'll sit here, you'll introduce yourself, and then you'll be given 3 minutes. This light, the white light starts flashing. When the yellow light comes on, you have 1 minute left. When the red light goes off, there's a buzzer and your time is up. And then we'll ask and answer questions, and then the assessor will be given 3 minutes. And then we'll ask and answer questions. We'll have comments between us as board members, and then make a decision. The rules are to be kind, direct all questions or comments to us, the board. If your conduct is out of line, you will be warned, and if you continue to be out of line, you will be escorted out of the premises by the marshals. All right, Greg, you're up first.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
before we begin, I would like to disclose that I know both appellates this afternoon, have known them personally for many years, have no business dealings with either one, but I just want to disclose to the board that I have knowledge and a long-standing relationship with them.
And I will disclose the same thing about Mr. Smedley. I've known Greg for a long time. So, but I feel like we can go ahead and conduct business
Correct.
in a proper manner. So, go ahead and introduce yourself. You'll
Well, at
have
the same
3
time, Mr.
minutes.
Huff probably knows the property is almost as good as I do. He probably walked on it as a kid, but. Greg Smedley, what else do I need to tell you?
And then just tell us your evidence.
So what I have, I think the one I sent to you is that one that there's a 14-acre parcel that I bought. Well, long story short, my daughter bought an old house that was there. And this is the part that I want the council to know that I'm worried about is going to affect our neighborhood. It wasn't zoned rural residential before, but in order for my daughter to buy that house, we went to the county and they had already had future plans in their future to zone that whole area as rural residential from ag ground. But at those meetings, including the ones I invited my neighbors to, and this is the part that makes me nervous, they said, but the county, at least on that end of the county, says that taxes, because my neighbor's biggest concern on signing the paper was, are our taxes going to go up? And the county said, no, it's for what the use is, not for what the tax rating says. That's what they were told, that they were told several times, including one of my neighbors that was real upset about it. And I finally said, just call the county and they'll line it out with you. And she called them and they said that same thing. It's not off of what it's zoned, it's off of what it's used. So that's So then we get these tax notices, and you can see, and I get this, that you guys can see that a couple of years ago, this was assessed in 2022 at 1194. I mean, I'm in the property business, I'm a builder. It's obvious that was way off. When you've got a, what, 9,000% increase, if you look down at those percentages on some of the taxes. But,
Okay, let me clarify here. We're not talking taxes, we're talking assessment.
oh, assessment, right. But,
Okay. I just
so,
for the
but if you
record-
look at the value, I appreciate it, but the value to go from, $1,194 to $134,000 for, and if you know the area out there, it's a hillside, one that you can't even build on, two that's not buildable yet, because it's not buildable, it's not even been subdivided for a building lot. So really, it's a sagebrush pasture for horses that I personally have never seen anything in at least our end of the valley sell for what's that, $9,000-$10,000 an acre for pasture. And so I just, that, at least in our area, for something that's used for that, I don't know anybody that would pay that much for, but I might be naive. But my biggest worry is, my mom lives next to me. I looked at hers, which I didn't think would change, and it got changed, the zoning changed on hers, and it went up 63% from 68,000 to 108,000. So my worry is that I don't think that's a fair value for 14 acres that's just a pasture. But once again, I haven't looked at my neighbors, but and you can look into this later, but because of the zoning, did theirs go up also? Because they're looking at it as rural residential, when in reality, the use of it has not changed a single bit. So that's my biggest concern.
Okay. Questions?
What are you using it for right now, currently?
It's just sitting there. It's not used, but it's a hillside. I mean, you can't even get on it. So, and my mom's is the same way. Her field hasn't been used with one horse for 40 years, and it's never going to be built on. It's just a pasture, and for a woman on a fixed income that's single, for her taxes to jump her value to jump 63% with no change in use. I get the market value thing, believe me. And on a building lot, I could totally agree with you on that one. And it might be someday. My goal is that my kids will build there someday, because I'm going to meet with the county and we're going over stuff to divide it. But up until now, according to what the county told us, it will not change your tax value if your use is still exactly what it is now until you make it buildable. So.
Okay.
So my question would be, when you say pasture, is it being used to actually graze cattle? Are you cutting the hay down? Are you cutting the grass down? Anything like that?
It's solid sagebrush. It's all, there's not even, I don't even have a horse on it because I have watered pasture, so that's where my horses are at, but.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that your questions? Your 3 minutes begin now.
Okay, so, the subject property is a 14.05 acre parcel. It butts right up to the WMA. It's on that hillside right there. I've actually hunted that top of that hill.
Oh.
But I didn't cross a fence.
And if you would have asked, I would have let you.
Okay. So we did find 3 comparables within 10 miles. There's a couple to the north up on the bench. There's a 7.8 acre parcel, bare land parcel, and a 10, just slightly over 10 acre parcel up there off of Bonneville Road. And then down around the corner on the way to Lava, there's another 14, almost exactly the same size parcel, 14.02 acres. They're coming in at 76 cents per square foot, 68 cents per square foot, and 31 cents per square foot. Now we have this parcel, and we have it in as additional acres. We're not giving it the full value because it is contiguous to his other parcel, and it's coming in about 22 cents per square foot. So we feel that the value that we've given to it is fair and equitable with the neighbors, and we would ask that you would uphold that value.
Okay. Questions?
They bought those as building lots. I know all 3 of them.
Well,
They bought those as building lots. This was not bought as, there's a huge price. I mean, if you want to compare to that, John Thurnagel's selling 2 acres for $130,000, so that's $65,000 an acre. I mean, you can't go, there's not even a comparison between buildable lot, a lot that's being used to build a house on, and a piece of pasture that connects to somebody else's property, just not enclosed.
Comments?
After each purchase, to each individual, including the subject property, we sent agricultural applications, determine what they were going to do with it. And 2 of them did come back and submitted, the paperwork to keep those parcels in ag. And the one that wasn't was the 10-acre one. He didn't respond with an agricultural exemption application, but the other 2 did. And we do have those values for those 2 parcels because they sent those letters back in. We have those at a much lower value currently. So, and I think we sent out 2 letters to the subject property owner.
Why are they at a much lower value?
Because they applied for the,
It's the ag exemption.
right.
Which I know the criteria you have to meet for that.
And dry land graze is actually the cheapest ground
Right.
out there, the way it's assessed. And, but you do have to apply for it. They don't just give it to you, so.
But isn't there a portion, well, that's a rule, but isn't there a portion of income you have to make from that property to be able to have that ag exemption?
What was that again, Greg?
Isn't there a portion of income you have to show some income from that?
Only if it's under 5 acres. If it's less than 5 acres, yes, you have to prove up. But if it's not less than 5 acres, you just have to be, this is where the use part comes in.
Yeah.
Rather than the zoning part, is it has to be being used as ag, meaning you have to have animals grazing on it, or using it for hay, cutting it, something like that. If it's over 5 acres, you don't have to worry about your income. But you do have to be using it as actively devoted to agriculture.
Yeah, that's
And
part of it.
my understanding is it doesn't have to be 12 months out of the year for that, right?
Anyway, I looked at those guidelines, and I didn't feel honest filling it out I could have stretched it, to be honest, which I know a lot of people that do. But my biggest concern was it's got the value under rural residential, not under dry grazing, if you look at it.
And we can't put it under dry grazing if we don't have the application.
Yeah, if it's not an ag piece of ground, we can't.
That application has to be there to get that value.
When you went and found the highest ones that sold, which are still buildable lots, have you found any just pasture that's just connected to a property that cannot be built on, cannot be currently built on, that has sold that has a current value? Have you found any of those?
That's a very specific search.
I know it is.
And there aren't a lot of bare land sales that are within this size range that we could say, this one looks exactly right. I mean, like I said, I found the one that was 14, it was exactly the same size, and they are still using it as ag at the
Yeah.
moment, so.
And that is a big difference.
Right.
But this property still come in at 22 cents a square foot, where
Yeah.
that property come in at 31 cents a square foot.
Whatever the square footage are, I'm just looking at a piece of pasture for $134,000, and it's just not even, I don't know why.
Well, and everything's buildable anymore. I mean,
And buildable, once you apply for and get it passed through a subdividing process and all that, which at that point, and this is my worry, Mr. Moser, is that with my neighbors that aren't doing anything and their zoning changed, they're not gonna go in and apply for a minor land division, and they're not gonna apply for building permits, but their lots have increased accordingly to a rural residential setting instead of ag. And so my worry is as much for
but
them
even if they was zoned as ag, if they don't have an ag exemption, they get the same values put on them.
So if
as
they don't
rural
get that, their zone,
residential.
and see, that's makes me worrisome, because that was never brought up in this zoning process, that if my neighbors would have heard that right there, not a single one of them would have signed the application to be zoned rural residential, not one of them. So that's my, and I know that's past, but that's why I'm here more so than my own, is that was never passed on, and I promise you, if that's the case down the road, they're all gonna come to me and say, you told us that.
And that has nothing to do with the assessed value. Honestly, it doesn't. John, any comments, questions?
No.
Jeff?
Well, Mr. Smedley is correct. I have spent some time on that hillside. And so I really struggle with the value, especially using the comparables that you used. I don't think it's an apples to apples comparison. And again, I struggle with that value So there's got to be a way forward that we can make it work that satisfies kind of what we need to do, but also satisfies the residents in that area, because the part that he's talking about, I don't ever see anybody building on that. And again, I agree with Mr. Smedley that if you have a piece of land like this, it's just not a good comparison to those other lots that can be converted very simply and easily into a residential lot. And so,
Well,
if it had the dry graze, it would be back down to that like $1,100 valuation if it was dry graze, correct?
Yeah, 85 times 14,
It's that big a difference?
yes, yeah.
so I'm just, what we're looking at here, and I'll have the assessor get her calculator out if we need to.
Yeah, you want my calculator.
That's a private.
Hey, if I didn't know you were stuck by law, I mean, really, I know all of you, I know you're trying your best, but
Well, what I'm going to say is here, we have a value that you've set,
Right.
but we've given adjustments in the past and on properties, depending on what the terrain is, which you say is buildable and stuff. And so as you would look at this, and it's not a buildable, just go out like these other 3 parcels, I think you can go out and you could build on them right now. On this one, you couldn't. With the hillside, you're gonna have to do some stuff. And so I think that we could do an adjustment because of the terrain.
Okay, and I agree with that.
And I
That'd
do
be
too,
good.
and yeah, because I think that's what I'm kind of hearing with hearing about the hillside. I personally have not been out there. But if there's a topography issue, yes, we can make an adjustment.
Usually, yeah,
And what would that be, and what number are you looking at? Was you pounding some numbers in your,
No, I
Oh.
wasn't, I actually was, yeah.
okay.
typically.
I thought you was on your calculator.
No.
maybe
Typically, I
figuring
think it's
numbers.
15% is what we give as a topography.
And just for safety's sake, that's not .75.
Okay.
Ouch.
I know, one
I'm not-
comment I would
I'm
like
not
to make
touching
though is they are planning on building later on, and they would have to do some work.
Oh, once I do the excavation,
Yeah,
turn in
yeah.
a permit, obviously, hey, we now have a building
Oh,
lot that's worth this much.
yeah.
Absolutely,
So, and-
absolutely.
And that, the 15%, I guess, would be considering the extra work that you're gonna have to do
Well,
in
it's
order
gonna
to
take
get
way
it.
more than that.
Okay.
Anyway, way more.
You doing it?
Yeah.
Okay.
What is it, 134 what?
It is
134,501. So last year's value was 116,420. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes.
Yes,
And I called on that when we missed the meeting. I was gone out of town.
yeah,
but
is that what it
I
was?
talked to the assessor about it. Or no, talked to the appraiser about it, sorry.
Okay.
One of the appraisers.
See, I'm more inclined to take 15% off of last year's value and say that's probably a more accurate for that, which that would put it down at 98.9 thousand. If my math is correct. So
I'm not gonna question your
You
math.
did go to
She
Marsh
might.
Valley.
we probably had the
We had
same
the
math
same teacher. I was gonna say, I shouldn't say that if I had the same teacher.
John, any addition to the conversation?
No, I'm curious about the part, though, that you keep having this discussion that it's not buildable. It's 14 acres. You couldn't put a house
No.
anywhere on this 14
No.
acres?
Not on this, because the
Not
14 acres.
not currently.
The hill
14
comes
acres of
down
hillside.
and rounds, and the 14 acres is in that round part
The-
off of the
The
hill.
fence line is right as it starts to drop off, isn't
My
it?
daughter got all
Yeah.
the good stuff, the
Yeah.
nice usable flat, and then I, to help her be able to afford it, bought all the upper stuff, just for a
So
buck.
this is on the hill between Ecom and McCannon.
Mhm. No, just looking at the picture, I can't really tell that there's
and
nothing on there that's not
You start
buildable.
the fence line right there.
Yeah, I can't see what the depth is.
Yeah, and then it just kind of goes.
Well, you guys sound
Up right
like you're
there.
both familiar with the property, so.
So,
What would you say the slope is on the hill there?
Well, when we surveyed it, yeah, it's, I don't know, the topography lines, Jeff.
I
It's,
was gonna say it's like a 60 degree
you can
slope.
barely, the first face that I need to get up is you can barely even climb up it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, once you get to the top, you're right. If you can get to the very top of there's gonna be a great building spot, but until I spend whatever it is to get there, and power and water and sewer, which I'm hoping one of my kids will end up there someday, and then we'll be
But there
tickled
is
to
a
death.
place you could build.
There is a spot that's gradable with about 3 weeks of an excavator. That's the part that's, so.
All right.
And current use, I want to emphasize that, that's the part that at the other side of the county that really frustrates me. That the current use, whatever it is, will remain the same no matter what the zoning changes, and that's not quite what I'm hearing here. So I'm not frustrated with you, I'm frustrated with what our neighbors were told down the road, so.
Do you have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I would move that we take 15% off of last year's value, which leaves me with a value of $98,957 for the assessed value.
Any comments on that?
Nope.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So we went to 98,957. Like I said earlier, if you are not happy with that, you have the ability to appeal to the state. You'll get a letter notifying you what's going to happen, and your two possibilities to appeal, either to the state or to the courts. And then the assessor has the same options.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okey dokey, now I know how this works. Have a good day.
All right, Robert?
I think I'm not staying with the computer.
Introduce
for me?
yourself, and then your 3 minutes will begin.
Okay, my name's Robert Fackrell. I'm appealing on some unique characteristics at 7104 Running Iron Lane, and mainly just the property value, not the value of the home that's there. It can be a little, I think there's some things about the property that's a little, I don't know if deceiving or hidden. We bought that land for $65,000. It had recently just been annexed at that time. Actually, the city annexed it under some kind of negative feedback from some of their departments telling them not to annex it because of some of the limitations. But we bought it for $65,000 when it was turned into the city limits. At that point, we were unaware of some of the restrictions, and I listed that in the letter that I sent in. When they annexed it, the mayor said, well, you need to pay for the road, and Jim Johnston said, well, I don't want another septic system down by the river. Well, the road that leads into our property is below the standard requirements of the city. It's not that wide. And then there's a gas line, and we knew that there was a gas line there, and we knew that there was an easement, which we were under the impression was 15 feet. Well, it's not 15 feet. It's 25 feet on one side and 35 feet on the other. So that does limit a lot of things that we can do on that property. And then the city of Pocatello was unable to provide sewer service, so we had to get a septic tank and I thought a very large septic field. Just my wife and I lived there. We just had actually 2 bedrooms, but it was 5 100-foot lines, so a very large septic field. So those kind of really limited some of the use that we have there. Also, there's no secondary vehicle fire apparatus road, which the city, I guess, kind of overlooked, but that's kind of something that's usually provided in city ordinances, I guess, that land does not have. And then just the history of the land value. Like I said, we bought it for $65,000. We were expecting, sewer and not the large easement. And then, so in 2021, it was at $50,227. And I thought at that time that was, probably pretty accurate, since there was these characteristics that made it not. Then in 2022.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
Not at this time.
Okay, your 3 minutes begin now.
Okay. Juanita Benson, the assessor's office. This is a 2.35 acre parcel. It sits at the end of Running Iron Road in Tallgrass subdivision. It was annexed a while back. It's currently valued at $153,261 or $1.50 per square foot for the 2024 assessment year. Just to address, some of the issues that he did list on his appeal form. I did call the city of Pocatello Engineering Department about the concerns about the road width and utilities, and in speaking with them, they made it sound like they would not have allowed more housing to be built had it not been adequate enough, because all the utilities are able to run under there. And they weren't, and that too was an issue, like he said, no inlet, no outlet, more than one. But they said that, again, they wouldn't have allowed more building had that been a major issue, and they feel it's adequate. And just to speak to the easements, most properties in and around the county have easements that they use for grass or their lawn or parking, that have to be worked around. Granted, maybe they're not 25 feet, but some of them do have those types of issues. So I just wanted to kind of touch base on some of the comparables. Comparable number one is a 1.10 acre. It sits a little bit a ways away, but it's in the same geoeconomic area as subject property. And if we allocate it out of, because it does have a house just like the subject, but we've allocated that out, it would come out to $127,500 or $2.67 a square foot. Another one at 1.76 acres would come in at $218,750 or $2.85 a square foot. And the closest one is 1.97 acres. It would be at $222,500 or $2.59 a square foot. And those are some that have a little bit of topography. Like I said, they still are in the same area, but they're on, they have some issues they have as well. And in looking over the information and the sales, it looks like he's valued fair and equitably to the neighboring properties around him.
All right, thank you. Question?
Yeah, just any of those comparables, because do they have, you said, some of them might have an easement. Like I said, I'm talking about 25 feet on one side, 35 on the other side. So, and also where they're required to have a septic field, because I think those are the kind of the unique characteristics, as well as the secondary fire apparatus road that makes it, really, so they're not comparable, and and like I talked about the 50,000. That was increased to 77,000, and I did send an appeal. And that was just last year, and it dropped from 77 to 65 after the appeal. And so that was, so I think it looked to me like it was evaluated just last year, and it was dropped from 77 to 65, and then this next year it just went back up, to, the 153. And so I didn't know if that was, characteristics maybe that was on the appeal last time weren't seen, but it was just, like I said, I don't really understand the the drop of, $12,000 after the appeal last year, and then that big of a, $65,000 increase, just next to
So
that.
you didn't come to BOE last year?
No, I just sent.
It isn't on here
I
as
just-
a BOE.
I just sent that letter in, and it was decreased.
And it was adjusted out of your office?
Right, right, and so it was put on the record.
Okay.
Yeah, so he would have received a decision letter of that change.
And I thought that was fair enough, and so,
And then my other question about this is, did you purchase the ground and build the house, or was the house built and you purchased after the annexation or before the annexation?
we purchased the land after the annexation, and that was for the 65,000. And at 65,000, we thought the city would provide, and I'm not sure what was said about the septic system, but because of that big gas line, I guess it's one of the main gas lines going into these, where it said they were not able to give a city sewer, and that we had to put in the septic field and septic tank.
Okay, but you are on city water?
Yes, we do have city water.
Okay. So you actually built the house?
Yes.
Okay. Comments? John?
Yeah, give me just a second. I'm looking at,
Actually, let me ask you a question
Okay.
of the assessor here. So, I mean, this does seem like a remarkable jump for the land value from 65 to 153. And so if I understand this right, everything that's been said here, the applicant came to you guys and had some discussions, and it went down from 70 some odd to 65. You guys made that decision?
Last year?
Last year.
That's-
Yeah,
I would
Isn't
have
that what
to-
you said,
I would have
Anita?
to guess that. I don't think we've looked into
Mhm.
that.
I do
So,
have,
do you have notes and things that explain why it would have gone down?
I'm gonna look. Give me a minute.
He was also put on a city.
I'm sorry?
Schedule this year,
Mm,
and he had been a rural schedule that we had overlooked getting that moved.
That would do it right there.
And the fact that our land values had went up so much this year, it kind of correlated and just.
You need
kinda
to speak a little bit
compounded.
louder.
Sorry. He was put on a city land schedule because when he was annexed in, he was still left as rural for some reason. And then that, along with our land analysis for this year, said that we were low on all of our land. So those two combined is why it went up so much.
So do you know when this was annexed?
I believe it was like around 2018.
And we had missed putting it in the city on our records.
where's that line for the city? The annexation.
It kind of goes around that subdivision, that tall grass subdivision, and then over a little bit, and then there's a rural property right there, kind of.
Just past the golf course.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
That's
adjacent to the golf course.
Yeah, you can see. That's the city there.
Right, okay.
yeah, I think they just annexed 7 acres. It was about,
So
It's like a
that's
2
not
parcel
your
or 3 parcel
Yeah.
subdivision.
Yeah.
yeah. And actually, there's part of that they did that was not annexed, that was directly across the road. It's just where the 2 houses were.
As I look at his neighbor to the east, their value is about 43,000 an acre. And then I go a little bit further down south to that other subdivision that's on the other side of the church property down there. What's that, Stone River developers? Those are in the $35,000 to $43,000 an acre range, which I think is probably a little bit more of a fair comparison to what Mr. Fackrell has. If I look at it on a per acre basis, and that versus the 80,000 where we have him, 80-ish thousand. So,
And those are in the city?
no, they're not. The one next to him is in the city,
Right.
and that's the one that's valued at 43,000 an acre. Because it's 4.67 acres, and you got the land value at 202. So again, given my questionable math.
Do you have the parcel number of what one you're looking at?
Yeah, the one I'm looking at is RPTGR 000200.
Oh, the neighbor,
Yeah,
I believe he's at. I didn't get it. Let's see.
That probably would be the most comparable property, and he has, I think, a smaller septic field and no easements.
that would be my motion, Mr. Chair, that we assess it equal to his neighbor right next to him, which would move the value to 101,846. Changing the value to 43,338 per acre, again, which is comparable to his neighbor right next to him.
John, any questions, comments? We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Just thinking of acreage, so it's cheaper.
So we've made a motion. We come down to the 101,846. And like I said, you have the ability to appeal to the state, or you'll get that letter, or to go to the district court.
Okay,
Thank you.
right. Thank you very much.
And just for your information, effective probably Friday, everything out to Katsamitas Road on both sides of the roads, and I don't know how far up the hill, will be the city of Pocatello.
Yes, we can't, right, and we'll recognize that for 2025.
Yeah, I'm
we've
just saying,
seen it,
if we
yeah.
missed this one
Yeah,
for a few years, we
yeah.
better be looking
Yeah,
while we're.
And so if those are done after, I think it's March